My brother, Sayam, what's happening, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Man, honor is absolutely ours. Remind me where you are in the world. I think you're over here on my side of the
I'm in
U.S.
Fort Lauderdale.
That's what I thought. I thought you were East Coast. Yeah, we're in North Carolina, so we're in the same time zone. But I thought you were a Florida guy. Very cool.
Yeah.
Remind me, are you born and raised out there?
No, I was born in Jersey and New York. I was born in New York and then raised in Jersey. So
Oh,
a little bit of a transplant, I guess you might call
yes, sir. Yeah, but you got that East Coast vibe, man.
it.
Cool. No,
I'm just
that's
putting the lighting and stuff on so that it can get better, clearer lighting.
no
Uh,
worries, man.
but
No worries. Yeah, you get it set up, and we got a couple faces coming in, then we'll get rocking and rolling, man.
cool.
We got some of our young men, some of our men from all over the world joining us. We'll have some Jersey folks in here too, for sure, and some Florida folks. So,
Some of the best people from Jersey, right?
man, some of my favorite humans on the planet. Some of my favorite humans on the planet. I actually was just talking to so I got a buddy named Mike Dolce who's out in Jersey. I was just talking to him this morning. Some amazing humans out there, man, for sure. Um,
Ready to go
Beautiful.
whenever you are.
Beautiful. And it always makes you look better when you're next to this face on a screen too, man. So thanks again, man. I appreciate you jumping in here. We get to do this every week and bring in some of the most just amazing humans on the planet, man. And it's always an honor. So you and I are just going to chat all things Siam for a little bit. And then some of these young men and men that are on live with us will come in for a little Q&A on the back end too. And then put it out there on the platform. And again, man, super, super grateful. So we just want to dive into all things you, man. And what I like to do when we have our young guys here is I like to dive into the 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old growing up in Jersey version of you first. Because at this point, you diving into real estate may or may not have been on the agenda at all. But we like to dive in there. Yeah, who is that young cat? And then we'll catch everybody up with what you're doing to impact the world here.
For sure. For sure. So you want me to start or is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, let's rock and roll, man. Who is that young buck at that age?
All right, guys. So look, and I was born in New York City in the Lower East Side. And I didn't come from, I'm in real estate now. I'm a real estate developer. I'm a real estate mentor and coach, but I wasn't always that way. I didn't come from, family that were real estate investors, right? My dad was a hard worker. He's from Ethiopia, and my mother's from the Dominican Republic. And they both came here with not a lot of money and but hard work ethic. So my dad was a cab driver for 21 years. Eventually saved some money and opened up his first business in Newark, New Jersey, for those of you that are from Jersey. And my mother was a hairstylist and a babysitter and helped raise us. But they wanted a better life than they had. They came here with, quote unquote, the American dream.
Mm,
So when I was young, when I was your age, I remember I wanted to go out and play basketball and ride my bike and have the best time. And my parents would say, yeah, you can do it, but you got to read a chapter first in a book.
mm.
And at the time, I remember crying, just pissed. I'm like, Dad, I hate you. Mom, I hate you. Why are you making me do this? But it actually worked out long term. I ended up graduating from high school. I got a scholarship to Georgetown University, and eventually ended up working on Wall Street, which is where I thought was my path,
Mm.
where I wanted to be. Why? Because everyone in Wall Street, in my mind, made a lot of money, and I was pursuing it purely for the money. And on paper, I was very successful. Right, I made a lot of money, but I also had no time to spend it. So
Mhm.
I was miserable. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week on average, and I wanted to get married to my now wife. And I gave my boss a few months heads of notice. He said, no problem. And then when it came time to it, he said, can you reschedule your wedding? Because we're really busy.
Wow.
Yeah. So I literally quit Wall Street cold turkey, not knowing what I wanted to do. And I eventually landed on real estate. We found the house in Newark, New Jersey for 45K. We went all in. We got a title loan, borrowed money here and there from credit cards, bought it, renovated, sold it, and made $60,000. And that's the start to my real estate journey. So, fast forward almost 15 years, we've done 1,400 real estate deals, and built a rental portfolio of over 600 doors, including a hotel, an apartment building in Miami, multiple houses and across the U.S. And have taught tons of people how to get started in real estate investing, and that's me.
Flipping love it. That's perfect, man. Thank you. That's a perfect overview because there's a lot that I want to pull in there and kind of unpack with all that, man. So thank you for laying that out. When your parents are talking about, hey, I want you to, dive in and read a chapter first. Did they now I come from an education background, and I don't know how much you know about what we do. We have the mentorship programs with these people all over the world. We've launched a little over 100 campuses, K through 12 campuses, focusing on real world learning, entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
just in the last year alone, and continuing to do that, which is why we bring in the best mentors on the planet like yourself. Um, and so, books are obviously a huge part of what we do. And I remember a conversation before I moved out here, and I was in education forever, and I was at Stanford for quite a while, and I remember talking to some of the students. I said, "Man, what are you guys reading?" Like, "Oh, well, here's my OChem, and here's my." I said, "Hold on, but what are you guys reading? Like, what do you like to read?" Oh, we don't read anything outside of that. Like, we're not going to read anything. We're not, unless we're forced to do it. And that's a trend that we've seen continue. And I think we kill the love of learning early so that people do have that response like you did. Like, Mom, Dad, why are you making me do this torturous thing? What were you reading? Was it something you chose? They chose? What was like
So
what?
they let me choose it.
Okay.
Because again, my parents, were just very hard workers. I don't think they had the big background in all the educational books and the business books like the One Thing, the E-Myth, all those stuff. Ended up picking that stuff up later, right?
Yeah.
They just wanted me to read to improve reading comprehension. They would even make me copy pages. If they found out a day that I didn't read, they'd say, "All right, copy every page onto this notebook of this chapter since you didn't do it yesterday as like double penalty," right?
Yep.
So they said, look, if you understand what you're reading, if you're good in math, the world can't hold you back, right? It's the foundation of everything that you do. And so, like I said, at the time I hated them, but I realized later on why they were doing this, and it's paid off, tenfold, a hundredfold, thousandfold. I can't even put a number to it.
No doubt about it, man. No doubt about it. Good on them for understanding that. And again, the young men that are here, and we got a lot of dads that join us live too, man. Just the reading is an absolute superpower, man. So the fact that they were doing that for you, man, I love that so much. Talking about how they wanted this better life for you, and so you went and you did the things, and you went to school and come out and you find Wall Street. What was the moment you realized Wall Street wasn't the path? Because I know you're talking about the 80 to 100 hour work weeks, the reschedule, the reality of you being this hyper paid cog
Yeah.
in this perpetual wheel. So was there a moment where it was like an emotional, overwhelming kind of thing? Was it just finally a straw that broke the camel's back? Like what was that moment for you? Because it had to have been leading up for a while.
Yeah, obviously, the wedding situation I told you was huge, but
Yeah.
even before that, there was something that I realized that said, this is not how I want to live the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life.
Mm,
My boss, he's a managing director. He'd been in the company for 20 plus years, and I remember it being his kid's birthday party. And he had to call his wife and said he can't make it because he has to go to a client meeting.
mm,
And I said, wait, hold on. This guy's a senior in the company. He's been here for 20 plus years and he's missing his kid's birthday party. And it was
mm.
that point I said, you know what? I don't want to work to live, right? I
Yeah.
want to, or is it live?
Live
I
to
want to
work.
live to work. I want to work to live. So not
Yeah.
the opposite way. And,
Yeah.
and, and that's when I started thinking maybe I need to do something else. Maybe this is not how I want to spend the next 20 years of my life. And then when it came to that big like fork in the road where I wanted to get married, and they said, "Can I reschedule the wedding because we're really busy?" And I had people coming from all over the country. We
Yeah.
reserved the place. We got the caterers. You got this all lined up, and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
right?"
Yeah, man. Oh, good for you, man. So we talk about living by a code here. We have a very intentional code, and the integrity around our family and serving and leading our family is part of the code that we believe in as an organization. Where did that? Because that's a very principled stance to take that not a lot of young people, truthfully, would take. There would be a lot of people that go, okay, let me see what I can do, right? Let me figure this out. And you start to sacrifice those values, or you maybe have to start questioning, do I have those values in place in the first place? Clearly you did. Does that come from mom and dad for you?
100%. 100%. We've always been a very close family.
Yeah.
The extended family and the immediate family. And we always I came from a family where family came first, so we always stayed close. Even now, we moved to South Florida, and with the moving to South Florida, my mother came, my brother came, and
Mm,
we all live within 10 minutes of each other, and we're constantly in each other's house, right? My nephews are almost like my sons, and they're like
yeah.
brothers and sisters with my daughters. It's just been, family is of the utmost importance to us.
I love that, man. Do you guys work closely together in this real estate venture? I
Yeah,
believe you do, right? From the research I've done, I believe you do. Okay, so that's interesting to me too. So working, with family can be extraordinarily rewarding. It can also be a different kind of challenging too, right? So
absolutely.
how do you guys navigate, maybe disagreements or just even differing visions within a family run business? How do you guys navigate that to maintain that core integrity of around like, wait, family still comes first, but
Yeah.
business is part of it. How do you guys weave those together?
Yeah, I think we just identify clear roles for each person. One of us is in charge of construction, another one's in charge of acquisition, so finding more deals and more properties. And then I'm in charge of the funding, right? So I raise the capital, I put the lending in line,
Mhm.
and so everyone's in charge. So when it comes to funding, they know that I'm the one that's going to make a decision in that department. When it comes to construction, I'm not stepping on my brother's toes because he's the one that does it all day, right? And then when it comes to finding new properties, he analyzes it and we just have scheduled meetings to kind of see if there's any insight from the others that needs to be taken into account. But everyone just stays in their lane essentially, and that's number one. And then it's unfortunate, but when you're working with your family, when you're working with my wife is even in the business, right? All the conversations tend to be around the business, right? Even when you're not
Yeah.
working. So, some of the things that we do is I take trips with my daughters and with my family where there's no reception, where even if I wanted to talk about business or answer the phone, it's just not possible. So you just got to designate the time.
Yeah, it's that those clear definitions, man. Um, they matter. I love the clearly defined roles thing. It is something we've seen be successful just in our own home too. Everybody's responsible for certain things, and we will lead, and that includes all of my children. 14, 12, and 9. They've got things that they own on the farm, and
Mhm.
it's we will defer to them when it comes to those things.
Absolutely.
And it just helps, and I've been accused before. It's like, well, you run your family very much like a business, and so that's so impersonal. Well, man, it's been so efficient, and it makes it so much more personal. And then we can come together around the family things and take off our job hats, and we can just come together. And I love setting up your environment for success in that too. I'm going to eliminate the possibility of getting spoken to, even if I wanted to. So
Exactly. We go camping.
yeah,
Once a month, my daughters and I just decided to pick a place that's remote, no reception. Even if there's
yes,
reception, we're not bringing the phone and let's just do it. And
yeah.
it's, family time is important.
I love that, man. That's rad. And you got a bunch of committed dads here too. We're gonna dig all that. You're mentoring your young ones and leading that way. I have to imagine you leave Wall Street, you start getting into real estate. There's got to be whether it's an in-person mentor, whether it was people you were paying attention to, there was something or someone that likely helped get you into that real estate journey. As you started getting into that, who were the people you were paying attention to, maybe reaching out to and connecting with? I don't know, but you were at least looking to certain people in the game. Who were some of those early mentors for you?
Yeah. So to answer that, I'm gonna take a step back. So the first deal was a huge success, right? Made 60K on it, in like 5 or 6 months. The
Yeah.
second deal was not. I actually took a huge loss on my second real estate deal, and it put me into like a little depression because I
Mhm.
just left my job. My
Yep.
my recent wife was pregnant, right? I didn't have insurance, so I left the job, and
Yep.
I'm supposed to be bringing money to the household, not taking money away. And so I went to a little depression because like, what's next? Right? I really want to do this again, but I can't afford to take another loss, right? And I really believe it's important to have a good support system. And my wife has been my support system since the beginning. And
Mhm.
she said, look, if you really want to do this, right, I think you should learn from somebody. You should latch on to somebody that has done this before, so you don't have to
Mhm.
make your own path, right, and just kind of follow in their footsteps. And that's exactly what I did. I went out and got a mentor, and the mentor I ended up getting it's a guy that he's pretty well known. His name is Than Merrill.
Okay.
And so he was from Connecticut and then moved to the West Coast. So Than Merrill and his team, I essentially latched onto them. I got coaching, I got mentorship, and they had done hundreds, if not thousands of deals by this point in time. And so just by
Yeah.
being in the rooms, being in the conversations, I started absorbing it. If I had something that came across and I didn't know, the answer to it, someone on their team was able to answer my questions, and it just really jump started my career. And you guys know my story now. Over 1,400 deals on the span of 15 years. So it really skyrocketed everything.
That's awesome, man. It matters. It matters so dang much. One of my campuses in California, when we still lived there, we had a friend named David Green who was Bigger Pockets Realist podcast for a long time. Has obviously written a number of books, and so he would come to the real estate seminars there and on our campus too. And one of the things I always loved there too is he gave credit to the people who came before him, the mentors that came before him, and then he would seek to help others learn that game too. Do you have others that are reaching out to you? Obviously, here this is a form of mentorship here too, pouring in and being on the show. And do you have others that look to you kind of in that same fashion or looking for you to lead them along?
Absolutely. So, you know, for while I was building my business, I wasn't really on social media, right?
Yeah.
I was focused on building my business. I was just grinding, right? And over the past year, I made a focus on social media because, there were certain things that I wanted, and people said, "Well, we don't know you," right? Um,
Mhm.
so, I've been doing that, and over the past year, a lot of people have reached out, and I actually started a community called the Wealth Wednesdays Real Estate Club where it's a community where people can join. It's on school, and we drop nuggets on a daily basis on real estate. They can ask questions. They can do all these different things to kind of, and it's a free community, by the way, right?
Yeah.
So I can drop the link. All you guys can join it. Please listen to other people that are doing the business. Some of them have done 12 deals. Some of them have done 1,000 like us, and then some are
Yeah.
still trying to get their first deal. And you hear everyone's, struggles. You hear you hear their concerns. We answer. Other people in the community answer. And it's just a great place.
That's awesome, man. And like you said, being in the room, there's so much more it's that old adage of there's so much more that's caught than taught, too. Just being in there and having, like, recognizing the patterns of the conversations and the things people are going through. And this is where victory seems to happen. And this is where, a big setback, tends to happen. Like being around in that matters so much, man. So how are you staying ahead? So again, I am an entrepreneur for sure. I am not a savvy real estate investor at all. I will very uh, readily admit that, but I'm interested. And I think it's a phenomenal vehicle. I have some great friends. David Green, obviously. I met Aaron Amuchastegui, who runs Real Estate Rockstars, is a dear friend of mine. I got a number of friends who are in the business, and this is their primary business, fix and flips and
Mhm.
apartment complexes and the whole nine like you're doing. So with the ever-changing real estate landscape, how are you staying ahead of trends there and adapting any strategies to maintain like success? And I'll tell you where a little bit of this is coming from too. We're launching all of these campuses and we're mentoring families and we're moving families forward. And we've had a lot of discussions lately here on this show and just internally on the landscape, like AI and how that shifts our
Yeah.
industry. How is that shifting education? How is that shifting higher education? How is that? And we don't look at that as something that's scary. It's just like, okay, well, this is the tool, and how are we going to use that? I imagine there's got to be something in the real estate industry that's getting shaken up with that or something else too. So, how are you staying ahead of trends? What are you excited about? Is there anything you're worried about real estate investing wise? What do those conversations look like in your head right now?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I still go to educational events. I actually spent Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at a conference in Miami called the IMN conference. It's the largest single family rental conference in the country. And so there were
Mm,
1,500 real estate investors there. Some guys owned 70,000 homes that were there. So I was not the biggest in the room, right?
mhm.
And I was listening to what they're doing. We're hearing how they're pivoting. It seems like right now, like just one example, the big trend is moving to build to rent homes. So over the years, you find these old homes, you renovate them, you put a tenant in them or sell them, and it works great. But then it seems like more recently, a lot of the guys are moving to just finding land, building a home on it, and as opposed to
Mm.
flip new construction, they put a tenant in there. And the reason they do that is because they have zero maintenance for 15 years. And that's huge to the bottom line. So that was one thing that I picked up over the at the conference just this week. right? Some other stuff with AI. There were actually whole sessions just about AI, how people are implementing it into the acquisitions team, where if a seller, responds to some marketing, the first literally days of conversation are with an AI bot. And then only when they got the seller hot and ready to say, I want to do a deal, do they get a phone call from someone on the team. So eliminates tons of work hours and back and forth and maybe some negative feedback from sellers that you don't want to even hear, right?
Yeah.
Up front. Implementing AI into, property management where tenants report maintenance issues or, do an application and they go back and forth with AI to get approved to get and before they even have to speak to someone to go out and lease the property. So there's just all different applications for it. There was one just yesterday that I learned about from one of the people from the conference where they're raising capital on social media for doing deals through AI. So they're having AI DM people on Facebook and asking if they have any interest in investing in real estate. And after going back and forth for days, AI will flip it to a live person once that person's hot and ready to move forward. So I mean, it's literally it's cutting the back and forth and cutting the labor's part of doing the business in half, if not more than that.
So fascinating, man. And so when it cuts the laborer's part, it inherently cuts the labor itself too. And so and I don't believe it's a thing that is always it's going to eliminate all jobs. I think it's going to shift the landscape of what jobs are and what jobs are available.
Correct.
So with that, assuming that is relatively true, how do you look at that from a dad point of view with raising kids in this world that is far, I mean, it's always been unpredictable. Certainty's never been a thing,
Mhm.
but we like to pretend it is. And we like to pretend that, you get good grades, you do this specific thing. It means you're going to get your degree, which means you're going to get your job on Wall Street, which means you're going to be infinitely happy. And gosh, if you get your bad grades, you're going straight to prison, obviously, right? Like we like to have all these BS stories we tell ourselves. That's shifting even more rapidly now. And you're raising kids that are coming into that environment. So am I. So
Mhm.
for the dads on here and all the parents that listen, we have the vast majority of our audience is between 40 and 50 and has, 2.3 kids. How do you look at raising kids in this and going, okay, here's how I want them to be prepared? What does prepared even mean to you? No wrong answer on that, but how do you look at that?
Sure. I think it's funny you said 2.3 kids.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I always wonder what that third of a kid looks like.
Look, I think, look, I heard a stat that, and I don't remember the exact number anymore, but I read a stat a few months ago where AI is going to replace millions and millions of jobs over the next couple of years, right? Now, with that being said, I'm a big believer that if you're relying on a paycheck, your life is not that secure. Or if you're relying on someone else to give you a paycheck, your life's not secure. So what I teach my kids, I'll start with what I'm teaching right at home, right? Is
Sir.
that, and I'm a big believer of real estate, so maybe I'm biased, right? Is that they need to own real estate earlier on. So I'm teaching
Mm,
them how they can get into real estate. And there's all these misconceptions. You need a lot of money. You need to be a millionaire. You need to do all this stuff to own real estate. And all that's not true because there's a lot of strategies out there to get in with little money out of pocket. There's a lot of programs out there to get in that'll help supplement your down payments and things like that. There's
mm,
lenders out there don't really care about your credit that'll help you close and fund your first deal just so you can get in the game. And maybe your terms not going to be the best, but you get in, you learn, and then you use the profit from that first deal to make your credit and your cash situation right. So you get better terms in the second, third, and fourth deal. So I teach my kids that it's important to become the owner of real estate and not always be the renter of real estate, right? The owner gets a lot of benefits. Every 10 years on average, real estate tends to double in price, right? If you just
mm.
go over the past 100 years and over most parts of the country, most parts of the world, real estate tends to double on average. And sometimes it does more than double. They triple in 10 years in certain markets that are hyper appreciating, right? And we're in a time period where there's high inflation. Real estate is a phenomenal inflation fighter. It does very well when inflation is high because the prices of the homes, kind of correlate with that.
Yep.
So I tell them, don't, if you want to go get a job, I support you to go get a job. But simultaneously having a job, you should also own real estate on the side. And that'll be your way to hedge someone else firing you tomorrow. It'll be your way to have supplemental income to earn more than what you're getting on your paycheck so you can invest that income and have it grow. So, number one, just get in the game, start buying real estate. And you can start buying it. I see a lot of younger teens in the room. You can start buying now. Buy with your parents.
Yeah.
Get on the LLC with them and start buying real estate and just learning the strategies to get in with low dollars out of pocket if the cash is not there today. And simply by just owning, your future self is going to thank you.
I love that, and I love that you said the future self too, because what I do, I think the thing that attracts me most to real estate, if I'm honest, it's not even just the financial upside. It is the fact that it is a long tail game, and I look at long tail games as those that usually tend to be the most real. Any of this short term, I'm gonna just go build the next Facebook and sell it in 18 months, or I'm gonna, or the quick get rich. I don't love that, and I don't love the metaphor for building anything that worth value, relationships or otherwise. It's always a long tail game, man, and I love that.
Agree.
Um, Maintaining and gentlemen, as you guys are here, I got a couple more questions in particular that I'd like to ask here. But young men and men, please feel free, get your hands up at any point, any questions that you want. That way, I know I got some here, and I'll be quiet and have you guys jump in. So knowing that you got this long tail game that you're playing, and the real estate industry, at least from conversations with some of my friends who operate there, one of the things that they will, I guess haven't really elaborated to me, but they've somewhat suggested sometimes you get involved in deals and like there's a lot more ethics uh, situations that come into it where it's like, hey, look, we're finding out these people we did these deals with, like there's that this was not an ethical deal. Um, how do you guys take a look at positively impacting these communities but upholding integrity? Is that something you've had to deal with in your business interactions? Is
Mhm.
that some is that a misconception overall as far as real estate goes? That's literally just from a personal, and I can't say that it's the majority of what they're saying by any stretch, but I just know, some of these guys that I've known who've been in this business for 20, 25 years, I've had a couple conversations with them. We're like, man, this one was a doozy. Do you face some of those ethical dilemmas?
Yeah, I do. I think it's more than ethics. I think I just have a big heart, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
where it comes down to. So, we buy these properties. Typically, the rents are low when we buy them because they need work, they need to be upgraded. There's the deferred maintenance. The person didn't fix all these different things. And I'll give you one example. I bought a multifamily building in Miami, Florida, 16 units. I bought it in 2019. The rents, it's in downtown Miami, right? The rents were $700 for an apartment in downtown Miami, which is just very, very under market, right? We went in and we renovated the entire building. We spent 650 grand to renovate the 19 units, 16 units, sorry. But when we renovated, the market rent at the time was $1,900 for the same apartment. And
Wow.
there were two apartments in particular where I just felt really bad removing the tenant because they had been there for 25 plus years.
Wow.
And one of them was an older lady. She was on fixed income. So what we did is we said, look, I don't want you to leave. And every time I went by, she made me coffee. All right. And she
Yeah.
would come with snacks. I'm like, I don't want this lady to
Yeah.
go. She reminds me of like a mother figure, right? And so what we did is we said, all right, how about this? We're going to offer you different ways that you can contribute to your rent to offset the spike. Because I understand you can't afford $1,900, right?
Right.
$1,900 is what everyone else can afford, but you can't. So we allowed her to provide cleaning services to the building. We allowed her to provide to clean up the leaves outside. And she had a son, so a lot of this was her son doing it, right?
Yep.
And we allowed her to make sure that the trash section was clean. And for each of those things, we paid her or essentially discounted her rent so that her rent did not go up from what she was expecting. But the number on top is accurate because I had to pay somebody to do those things. Right. So in the end, it's still an accurate number. Getting what the building is supposed to yield, the investors and other stuff are getting their return. But we were able to save this tenant and not put them on the street. So I guess when you say the ethical, that might be what I'm thinking when it comes to that is there's ways to creatively still help the community, help those that maybe can't afford, modern times, modern rent, or the improved rent from the renovations. And that's one way we've been able to get in there and do that. In addition to
And
that, let's just go back to COVID, right? There were all
Yeah.
these tenants that didn't have income. There were all these tenants that couldn't afford it. And as opposed to trying to kick people out, what we did is we found programs that would help them pay their rent in times of need. And we were able to reduce the evictions that we would have had almost by like 70, 80% because we found these programs that would come in and supplement their income, even pay advance rent so they can get on their feet and get a new job or whatever it may be and catch up. So we're always looking for ways to help it's the wrong word. I was going to say the little guy, but help the tenant or help
Sure.
their need so that we're not putting people on the street, which is probably the toughest part of the real estate business.
Yeah, it's got to be, man. I love that though. I love that solution oriented mindset and keeping ethics in mind. I think that's creativity. In my experience, creativity comes out of either a complete lack of experience in something. If you think about a child going into something that knows absolutely nothing, they might have all kinds of creative solutions. Those tend to not necessarily be, always the best solutions, but they're going to be creative, right? Or the creativity peaks when you've got so much experience. You can see creative solutions, right? And people that live in the middle and just get rid of the creativity because they just want to be certain about everything. I think that's when you find yourself in the trap more. So when you're looking at these deals now, or maybe even not even looking at the deals now, maybe these young guys. So these young guys want to start getting into real estate. They want to start looking at the potential of investing. They're like, okay, I love what you're saying here. Maybe I'll talk to mom and dad. Maybe we have a little money to put towards it. Maybe we don't. Got to start figuring this out. What are some of the most important skill sets they would need? Is it more important? I'll pose two that seemingly are diametrically opposed, although I know they're not up front, but I'll let you unpack it. Is it more a numbers game and you got to be that spreadsheet guy that can figure out the numbers and the economics of it all? Or is it more the people game and you got to be able to talk to human beings and relate to them? If you got to pick one of those, which one is it? And then the more general, what are the skill sets we need?
Yeah, so I think actually the people part of it is more important. You got to be able to speak to them and get comfortable speaking, get out of your shell and being shy. Because just by going there and having conversations, you'd be surprised how many deals get made by just having conversations, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that's the most important skill. The numbers, the spreadsheets, all that stuff, you can learn that stuff later, right?
Yeah.
And you can always bring someone onto your team that can help you with that stuff or partner with someone that can help you with that stuff down the line if you get yourself a great deal. So for all of you guys that are out there, I'm looking at your your videos up front. You guys all have eyes, right? You guys all have ears. You're in the community. When you're driving around town and you see that ugly house down the block that has a hole in the roof or has a tarp on it, or the grass is 5 foot tall, right? Write down that address, right? This is how you can get started in the real estate game. Write down that address. Let's try to reach out to that owner. You could put a letter on the front door. It's as simple as that, right? And saying, hey, are you thinking about selling your property? Or is there a way we can help you with your situation? Whether you know the situation or not, right? And by in real estate, by helping people, you inherently get a great deal. So it's a win-win scenario for everyone. And if you don't have the money to do deals, there's so many ways you can monetize on a deal to help your financial situation so you can start doing deals. There's something called wholesaling real estate contracts, right?
Hmm.
And for all of you young ones out there, this might be the place you start because you don't really need money to do this. So if you find that house in your neighborhood that's, looks like it could use some help, or that house that's in foreclosure, that house that, is going through a probate process, talk to the owner, find a solution, and by you locking in that deal, you have all the opportunity to make money off that property. So you can find someone like me. There's one in every neighborhood where there's investors doing deals. Every neighborhood's got investors doing deals. You can find the local investor that's doing the deals, and you can sell the ability to buy that deal for a fee, right? So let me explain that because it's
Interesting. Yeah.
so Malachi Smith, you're the first one I see in the top, right? So I'm gonna pick on you. So sorry. All right. You find that house in your neighborhood that needs some love and care and needs some work to get it to retail value. You say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm willing to buy your house, right? My family's willing to buy your house. I don't know how old you are, but let's say you're 13. So maybe say, my family's willing to buy your house just because maybe some sellers might say, what is a 13-year-old gonna buy my house, right? My family's willing to buy your house and we're willing to pay $100,000 for it after you figure out what their situation is. They say, yes, let's do the deal. I want to buy, I'm willing to let you, buy my house. Real estate is all about solving people's problems. You solve their problems, they win and you win. As a result, you now have a contract to buy that house for $100,000. Malachi, you might say, I have no clue how I'm going to get $100,000 to buy that house. That's fair. All you have to do is do a little bit of research. Go to Facebook, right? Go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, which are in every county. They have Chamber of Commerce meetings. Local business owners are there. And you say, hey, everyone, I have the opportunity to buy this house for $100,000, right? That's worth 200,000, just to after putting some renovations to it. Who would like to take over my situation and buy this property? And Cole Kalber is going to say, hey, I'd love to buy that house. How much do you need to transfer the contract to me?
Mm,
And you might say, I want $10,000 because you have the opportunity to make $40,000 by stepping into my shoes, right? Cole is going to give you $10,000 all day, every day, twice on Sunday, if he can pay 10K and walk into someone's shoes and make 40,000 over the next 6 months.
mm,
So it's a matter of just finding the homes that need some help and then finding the investors, and you put a deal together and you make a nice spread. Now imagine if you do that 10, 20, 30 times over the next 12 months. And there's people out there doing it, and it's a great way to get into the game. Step up, build your cash reserve so you can get your credit and finances right to close on deals yourself. All right.
mm.
And make a lot of money in the process.
How cool, man. Yeah, that's rad. I remember seeing, I went over to a friend's house when I was a youngster, and there was this guy that used to do these infomercials before the internet was a thing, and it was an infomercial. His name was, I don't know why I remember the name, but I can see it on this folder. His name was Carlton Sheets.
Oh, yes.
You remember that guy?
Yeah,
And
of
so,
course.
so he used to OG, right? Doing all these I mean, I just remember my friend had this binder and he was looking at it and he was talking about a this is something that I think is similar to the wholesale environment that you were just talking about. And my friend was going, man, you can do this thing called a double closing where you've got somebody that's gonna buy it for this, but you're also gonna sell it for this, and so you make the difference on this. I don't know if that's even a thing or if that's similar to kind of what he was looking at, if that was really a wholesale thing, but as you described that, that's similar to
Yeah.
um, what it sounds like a similar kind of deal.
So
Go
I
ahead.
had some of the people were asking about the club I guess I had mentioned earlier. It's called the Wealth Wednesdays Real Estate Club. All of you guys can join. It's free. I just dropped the link in the chat for the school community. So just click on it,
Awesome.
sign up, and you'll start getting, you'll get nuggets from day one. There's even a couple of free classes that are recorded on there on raising money to do real estate that you can go and participate in.
So cool, man. Thank you for dropping that in there.
No
Uh,
problem.
and then I see a hand up too, so I'm going to grab you here in just a sec. So you got talking about that wholesale strategy. You mentioned a couple things as you were going through there too. What do you have a personal, so I don't know, like any of the auction related things and like tax lien related things, and you got the apartment complex related thing. Do you have a personal favorite? Like these are my favorite deals to do.
Yeah, look, so I mean, all those work really well, and I do all those strategies. Our team
Yeah.
does all those strategies. But really, when you find the homes in your neighborhood and that are beat up, right?
Yeah.
Going to those homes are the best because you know that neighborhood, you know that market, you can touch it, you can feel it, right? But if you're
Mm,
looking to scale your portfolio, for us, one of the best strategies that we've used over the years are the people who are behind on their taxes, like you said. And that works for multifamily apartment buildings, that works for single family homes, that works for retail strip centers. It works for all properties because every single one of them come with property taxes. And the reason I like that strategy is because most times when you're behind on taxes, it usually means that you don't have a mortgage, right? Because
mm,
when you make a mortgage payment, all right,
right.
it's taxes,
Makes
insurance,
sense.
and your principal and interest. So
Right.
number one, you have someone that has a low amount of debt, which means you guys can make a deal typically, right? That's one. Number two, it shows that they're financially distressed and they need help, right?
Yeah.
And then number three, there's a definite timeline that needs to be resolved, or their property's going to go to auction or whatever for taxes, right? So
Mm,
what I'll do is go to the local county. This is a free thing you can do, guys, right? It's
mm,
published on the tax collectors. You want to write that down. The tax collectors site for your county. You can go and look at properties that are going to auction for taxes. This can be 60 days out, 90 days out. Build some time. Don't do the ones going to auction next week, right? And get that list, download it. They'll give you a spreadsheet and start reaching out to those owners. Either it's putting a sign on their front door, or it's finding them on Facebook and sending them a DM, right? Whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, you guys are better than me in social media, so I'm sure you can find them even, better than I can, right? And just saying, hey, I noticed your property is going to auction. Have you resolved that situation yet? If not, I have a solution that'll pay off your taxes, all right, and it'll put some money in your pocket so you can move on to your next situation in life, right? A little less stressed out. And if you reach out to 100 people in your county that are facing tax foreclosure, and it's weeks or months away, you will get responses, and then you have an A/B conversation and negotiate a deal. So that's been our most successful way of securing great deals and helping people at the same time.
That's so cool, man. I love that. Yeah, I mean, you guys, the social media stalking ability is real on that. Even the farm that I live on, this wasn't a tax deal, it wasn't a distress kind of deal, but it was something that was unlisted. It was, we heard he might be open to it, and he wasn't listed. You know, you could, it was hard to find out who actually owned it.
Sure.
But did a little stalking, did a little digging, made a phone call, and here we are, man. So something like that, it just makes a whole lot of sense. Ah, this is good stuff. All right, Malachi, get in here, sir.
All right, thank you, sir, for coming on. I had a question. Real estate is a very common method people talk about for investing, and I've heard a lot about the standard, okay, here's a house, buy it, make it into a duplex, get your tenants in, and one will pay for your rent, the other one's all profit. So it sounds really easy, and I hear a ton of people saying it. What's your opinion on that? Does it work? Is there more complications? What should people know about this since it seems like such a common advice or situation that people recommend taking on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So the buying rentals is one of my favorite things to do. All right. So the answer is yes. Right. At the start of your conversation, I say yes, you should go do that. Okay. Now just learn how to do it. Right. So I think that you should have a calculator, which I'm happy to share with all you guys. Right. A calculator that you just kind of plug it in and make sure that the property is going to cover itself and bring a surplus, because not every duplex is going to cash flow and make money. You might walk into a scenario that you're going to lose $500 a month because it's an expensive property, right? So before you buy your property, whether it's a flip, a rental, whatever it is, you need to put it through a calculator and make sure all the additional costs are factored in, right? That's your taxes, that's your insurance, that's your mortgage payments, that's maintenance. If there's always going to be maintenance in every house that you have, right? There's going to be lawn care if it's a multifamily, a duplex, triplex. You typically have to cut the grass. If there's a pool service. I mean, the list goes on. Property management, if you're not going to manage it yourself, right? You got to factor all those things in and make sure that you still come up with a positive. And for me, what I tell all my mentees is make sure that you have at least a 20% surplus, right? Or cash flow above the cost to own that property every single month. And if that's the case, now you have a cushion. A water heater breaks tomorrow. You spend six, seven, $800 for a water heater. It's not taking out your cash flow for the next 12 months. So
Mhm.
20% surplus is a minimum, but in many markets, you'll find 50%, even 80% surpluses, particularly when you go to certain parts of the country. But if you're in some of the more expensive markets like New York City or Miami, 20% surplus is kind of what we're shooting for. So that's my response to you. Put it through a calculator. If it fits, then by all means, let's go for it. And multifamily dwellings are one ways to really get great cash flow.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense.
My pleasure.
That's really good, man. Um, as you're taking a look over the next 5 years, 10 years, and continuing to grow and continuing to help mentor others, what does what does success look like now for you when you're talking life and career? Because you've got, you grew up with a family with some great values. They instilled these great values, and I love that. I think I want to hug your parents just already, just based on what I know just from this conversation. So you grow up there. You're obviously a family man now too, and prioritizing that, which I just again appreciate so dang much. What does that story of success look like now? How has that evolved? Obviously, leaving Wall Street, getting to the real estate, but now I'm a dad, and now I'm looking towards the future. Like, how are you defining success, legacy, all that kind of stuff looking forward?
To me, in all honesty, my idea of success has changed over time, right? In the beginning, it was like, oh, how I can make the most money I possibly can. And
Yeah,
then it's how can I spend more time with my family,
yeah.
right? And now I think, and we're making a big transition now, actually this year, is it's freedom, right? Time freedom. We
Yeah.
make more of it. So what's successful for me is making sure that I'm able to generate the income I need so we can do the things we want to do, but more specifically to have the time that we want to do. If I want to go on a trip with my kids and my wife, I can do it, and I'm not locked in to my desk for it. Because even though I'm self-employed, even though I have a real estate business, I still work a lot, right?
Yep.
And so I'm restructuring my business to allow me to step away, right, and do the things I want to do. And we're investing in places we want to go, right, as well. So I bought a hotel in the Dominican Republic. I'm half Dominican. I told you guys I love going to DR, right? So we bought a hotel there, and we said, you know what? My brother's there now. He was living in Ohio, and he said, you know what? I don't want to be in Ohio anymore. I want to go to DR to the hotel. I said, I can't blame you for it. And it happened to be in December when he said that, right? In November when it was freezing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're investing more in places we want to go. So lifestyle investing is important, and we're structuring our life in ways that we're going to be able to buy our time back. So making these more systemized. So for me, success is what's going to give me the most time to be with my family and people that I love, while also supporting the lifestyle that we want,
I
as
love that,
the
man. Good.
stacking the most money that we possibly can. Right.
Yeah, man. No, good for you. I was out in Vegas not too long ago with you mentioned school, and so I was out there with Alex and Layla not long ago. We were talking about all this and what we're doing here. And there was another entrepreneur who had come into the room, and she was a very interesting lady. And I didn't get to talk to her as much as I would have liked to. But she came in and she just said it was like 18 months or something. She gave kind of a time frame, and she just kind of popped her head into where we're meeting. She's like 18 months, and he's like, good. He's like, go 2 years or whatever it was. It was like she gave a number and he said, all right, this. And she's like, yep. And I said, what kind of secret code was that? Like, what was what were you guys talking about, right? And he's like, man, he goes with her. He goes, she was one of those classic entrepreneurs working 80 hours a week, whatever, but she didn't have to. She needed to get a team. She was able to create systems. She needed to have a team. And so we started this experiment when I started working with her. And the experiment was, how long can you stay away from your business and nothing goes off without a hitch? Like she said, he said there was like a key man risk there because she was doing everything. So we got her out of there, put some great people in place. So what she was giving him was the time that she had just been completely away from her business. Right. And he's like, all right, now you're going to go towards this. Right. It was like building those systems, man. And that comes with building a strong team too. And so this is one of the things, as you're talking about this and getting towards freedom, I love that, man. How are you building that team too? I know you got some that are family, and that's great. How do you look to hire too? You get one of these young bucks who's like, all right, man, I'm gonna come work for you, Sayam. Like, what do you want to see from the people that you are hiring team wise?
Yeah. Look, I want people to treat it like it's theirs, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we do, especially with our project managers and like that, is yeah, they get a salary because everyone needs to cover the basis, right? But I tie in their compensation with their performance of the deal.
Yeah.
So they if we're making money, if we're doing really well, they're also making money and doing well. If for some reason their efforts are not producing a profit, then they're going to feel it as well, right? And so that's one of the things we do. I want people that are bought into the vision. I want people that constantly want to grow and learn. And if you have all the above, I think you could be a great fit in whatever industry you decide you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we've done in our business.
Yep. I mean, I think that's it. It literally is that. It's that simple, guys. It is that ownership there. And we want to do the same on our side, but you guys knowing that going in on this side too, um, it will pay dividends for you to treat it that way. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, sir, for coming on this call.
My
I've
pleasure.
enjoyed it. You said that talking to people and being able to relate is a big part of, uh, real estate. Uh, how do you compensate when people start to get like their emotions rise or they start to get a little angry about certain things? What is your way of bringing them down and being able to have a civil conversation with them?
I think sometimes there's two parts of it. Number one, listen or look, you have two ears and one mouth, right? So you should listen more and talk less, right? When you're talking with anyone else that you want to do business with. That's number one. The second thing is if emotions get high, sometimes just end the conversation there and then revisit it 30 minutes, an hour later. And usually people aren't as angry anymore. People like they realize that it wasn't as big of a deal as they thought it was. So that's the second part. So kind of just learn to walk away, right, at the moment. And if you implement those two things, you can have success in any industry or business that you want to do. I'll give you an example of a deal that was made by simply doing what I was telling you. Right. There was a house in Parkland, Florida that we were looking to buy. It was some people going through a difficult situation. And by listening to them, I was able to hear that she hadn't seen her grandkids in years. Right. She really just wanted to sell her property and not have to deal with it at all. Right. And then go visit her grandkids. So we were off by like $75,000 in price for where we were negotiating for. I don't even remember the numbers now. This was probably 12 years ago, right? But 10, 12 years ago. But we were just off. I remember being off $75,000. So by listening to her, I said, look, how about, how about I'm just going to give you a number because I don't remember what the number was, but let's say it was 325, right? How about I give you 325? She wanted 400. How about I give you 325 and I pay for a first class plane ticket? It was to China, right? To China, so you can visit your family and you don't have to worry about packing up anything. Pack what you want, take it with you, everything else, leave it in the house and don't worry about it. And she said, "You would do that for me?" And we were like, "Yeah." And we signed the deal, closed it, and made a lot of money on that property, right? It was a win-win for both sides. So a first class plane ticket was probably like $3,000-$4,000 at the time. So it wasn't even $75,000. Her leaving the stuff in there was us putting a couple dumpsters and paying a couple grand. So maybe that was a total of 10,000 at best, right? That we moved in price, but we've solved her situation because we listened to what she was saying. So hopefully that puts it in perspective.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because to her it was $75,000.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
My
Yeah.
pleasure. I see a couple comments in the chat. So Baz said, "Where's the hotel in DR? It's in an area called Cabarete, which is in Puerto Plata on the north coast of the Dominican Republic."
Very cool. Yeah, and I love that last question, Mr. Wells, because anger, one of the things we've been talking about a lot lately, especially with the men, is the understanding that anger, usually when emotions run high like that, and it comes across as anger. Anger is almost always a secondary emotion, right? If they're angry, there is something there that's first. And so there's some other painful, there's some other uncomfortable emotion that is not getting dealt with directly. So anger is the thing that comes out, and a lot of times it's masking that. So a lot of times it is, there's a sadness there, or there is a fear there. There's an underlying desire there that they feel like is not getting met, right? And so it's slowing it down to, and sometimes it is waiting, giving it time, coming back, but then you listen and you can start to uncover what the real problem actually is. And that was a beautiful example of that right there.
Absolutely. There's a couple of questions. Do you want me to answer the questions in the chat, or I saw someone has a hand up?
Sure.
First?
If you see a couple in the chat, let's grab those and then I'll grab Mr.
So someone asked me to reiterate the 20% surplus when owning a rental property. So let's say the tax, insurance, property management, everything costs you $1,000 a month to own a property. I will only do that deal if at the very least the rent is $1,200 or more. So I know that every month when the rent is being paid, after factoring all the costs to own it on a monthly basis, there's at least a 20%, or in this case, a $200 cash flow or cash positive, coming in on a monthly basis. Now, 20% is the minimum. The more, the better. But at the very least, you're not doing a deal that's tight and one thing happens and you're losing money for the rest of the year. So that's the explanation behind what I was saying.
That's perfect. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense, Mr. Ost. So, it costs X amount. You want to make sure, obviously, you're going to make that amount. And then he's adding 20% on top of that, just as that buffer, as that cushion. Hopefully, the majority of the time, you're not having to use that, and that can get used for something else, or we can hold on to that, however they play that game. But that 20% is there just in case there's a little extra that needs to be spent to make sure that they're not losing money on the deals. Yeah, it's a good question.
Sure.
And Mr. Mraz, you'll have the last one from internally, sir.
Thanks for coming on. Right now, but I actually run a property management company that manages about 700 units. Can you hear me? Is this better?
Oh, that's better. That was better.
That's better. Okay. Wrong earpiece. So sorry about that. But I actually run a property management company in Atlanta that manages about 700 units of single family homes mostly. And something on the expenses I wanted to throw out there for everyone. Make sure you include vacancy as an expense. It's one that a lot of people forget about.
Yes.
Someone will move out eventually. Please include that. And often our clients that aren't good clients are the ones that, they buy it wrong. They buy it, either someone told them it can get way more money. So make sure your things are realistic. And like they think the rent can be way higher than it is, or they want to base the rent on what they bought it for. That doesn't change the market. So, but my question for you is, I actually learned more from the mistakes that I've made in real estate. What would you say is the biggest mistake and the biggest thing to avoid that you've learned in your time in real estate?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the biggest mistake that people do is they just want to do a deal, so they do a skinny deal, right? And let me reiterate that. So let me rephrase that. A skinny deal, meaning a deal with small profit. You're a new investor. You never know what's going to happen, right? And that's why I harp on the 20% minimum, right? You never know what's going to happen. You might have a contractor issue that that goes that you encounter, or maybe a new comp on the market comes up. Comp mean a comparable sale to determine your value of your property when it's done comes up that adjust the market, or the property takes longer than you anticipate, so you have more holding costs, right? The easiest way to lose money, all right, is to force a deal and do a deal with a tight profit margin. All right. And I've seen it happen over and over. And I've even been guilty of it myself, because you fall in love with a deal. Don't fall in love with a deal, fall in love with the numbers. All right. So make sure you have a good profit margin when you're doing a deal. And if the numbers don't look enticing on paper, just pass and go to the next one. There's a million deals out there, right? So there's no scarcity of deals out there. You just not, if you use some of the things I told you today, all right, you will go out there and find deals. Inevitably, it will happen. You just have to go and start looking. Now that you guys are into looking, you will find them. You make money and lose money when you buy the property, not when you sell it. Exactly, Adam. So buying right is the most important thing. So I'll give you guys a quick formula. It may be over some of your heads, but it's okay, right? You guys have the link to join the community. So we talk about this stuff in the community probably on at least twice a month, because it's important, right? You want to be all in on a property. That's your purchase, your renovation costs, everything, at no more than 70% of what that property is going to be worth when you want to sell it. Or and that's if you buy in a rental as well. So let me just put in perspective of numbers. If you buy a house that's going to be worth $100,000 if you fix it up, right? It means that you want to be all in on that property at no more than $70,000 when you factor your renovation, your holding costs, and everything. Why? It gives you cushion. If the market changes and then drops 10% tomorrow, guess what? You can just drop your price, get out of it, and not take a bath, right? If the property goes longer than anticipated, it's okay. You have the margin to withstand that. If you go over budget on your renovation, you got the margin to withstand that. So, so in that scenario, if your renovation budget is $10,000, I'm just throwing a number out, right? It's $10,000. It means your maximum offer you can make on that house is $60,000 to make sure you buy it right every single time. And once you guys join the community, you have calculators and stuff that'll help you with some of this stuff, right? But that's just the basis of understanding investing. And I buy my rentals the same way. So if I need to refinance it, or we refinance almost all of them, we do, guess what? I can take all my money that I've invested out, because banks will give you 75% of what that property is worth. So if I'm into it for 70% or 72%, and I refinance 75% of that property's worth, I now can own that property with very little money into it. And I can use that same money to buy the next one and the next one and the next one. All right. So doing deals that have margin, that have profit, and not doing skinny deals is the best way to attack this business.
And not compromising on those standards that you set right there. I love that, man. Guys, we talk about standards of all kinds of things. We talk about standards of relationships, right? And whether you're getting into a relationship with a young lady, getting into relationships with, the guys that you are hanging out with, the people that you are spending your time with. It's you have a specific set of standards, and when you start to compromise on the standard, you start to compromise on your values, you start to have more issues, right? Sayam's talking about the exact same thing. Some of the exact same thing from a business standpoint. Here are the standards. Don't fall in love with the deal. You fall in love with the numbers. You take a look at those kinds of standards. You give yourself that cushion, and you don't let yourself compromise just for the sake of having a deal, and make a bad deal. And I love what Mr. Turpin put in there from Never Split the Difference. Says no deal is better than a bad deal.
Agreed.
I love it, man. So good. So I know we're at the hour here, so I want to make sure we honor time. The last question's on our side. What are you most excited about pursuing over the course of this next year? Where does everybody go to find you? I know we've got the link in here. We'll put that link in the show notes too, so
Okay.
people can join the free school community, but I want to know where they can find you. And the most important question for us is, how do we as an organization best support you as the man, the husband, the father?
All right. So I just wrote my social media tags and I put in the chat, right? So my IG and TikTok is there.
Perfect.
I drop gems on a daily basis on IG and TikTok. I recently started my podcast as well. So you can find my podcast. The links on there are on IG and TikTok, right? They're on
Perfect.
Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. So just get on there, get in the rooms. If you want to be in real estate, just get in the rooms and just get in the conversations. And by being in the rooms and being in the conversations, you'll inevitably start doing real estate investing, right? It doesn't have to be me, but follow a mentor, right? Someone that you connect well with, that you like their teaching style, and just follow them and listen to what they're saying. And like I said, by being in the rooms and by being in the mix, you'll eventually start doing it. Just by because your net worth is your network, right? So still start going out there, start meeting people, start building your network, and I'm confident all of you guys will have a very, very fruitful future. But follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, get on the school community so you can start
Yeah.
getting the teachings. It's all free. And I look forward to supporting your endeavors. For me, growing the community is the most exciting thing, right?
Yeah.
I have a mission. I want to see people that are within my community do $100 million in real estate over the next however many years, right? I know it's possible, right? There's people doing it right now. Let's start with our community right here.
I love it, man. How do we support you? You as the man, you as the father, you as the husband. How do we best support you, man?
That's a great question. I never thought of. I guess maybe share the link for the community out there to your network on your social media platforms. Share the link, bring
Yeah.
people in the community. Let's start inflicting change and helping people get started in the game.
So good, man. Brother, rad human being. Obviously extraordinarily knowledgeable too. But for us, the most important thing, you're obviously a man of integrity too, and a good human, man.
Thank
And
you.
no, it's the honor is absolutely ours. I'm gonna take these guys through a debrief over there. Oh, Travis, I see you guys. Travis snuck a hand in there. Go ahead, sir.
I just did. I wanted to let everybody ask questions, so I didn't duplicate anything. But I'll get right to it, man.
No
Like
worries.
this is an extraordinarily informative and helpful session. I know the fellas are going to watch this on record. I know of at least a couple of our guys that are going to watch this on record more than once. This group you've put together, though, I was just actually going to ask you: is this something exclusive? Would you shout this thing from the rooftops if I share this with 100 people? Are you okay with that? Does this group get overwhelmed? This young person or this link that you shared?
No, I think please share it. So we have a whole team. It's not just me, right? We've got a whole team of people, and people that have been following it for a year are now doing deals, and they're in there commenting. So it's not just hearing from me. So don't think that you go in there, you're only hearing from me, right? You hear from Ramon and Brandon and all these people that have been working in this community for the past year, 2 years, that are going to give insight. So please share it, get the name out there, and it's only going to help the community grow. So I think it's a great cause, and I appreciate you willing to do that.
Yeah, thank you for your generosity, then, and thank you for putting together a great hour. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. And that guy, that man right there is on his way out here to my neck of the woods, man. So look forward to seeing you here soon. Brother, again, thank you. I'm gonna bring these guys through a debrief. I'm gonna reach out to you here in a little bit. I know I have email and stuff too. I'll reach out to you via social as well, make sure that we're all connected there, and want to continue to support. Obviously, we'll tag you and let you know when all this stuff goes out here too, man. But grateful for you, grateful how you're showing up, man. Grateful for your time here with all these guys, and we will stay connected, keep this conversation rolling.
Awesome. My pleasure. Everyone have a great weekend and enjoy your holiday weekend. And look forward to seeing you guys on social media and in the community and helping you guys in your endeavors. Take care.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Talk
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
There.
Bye, everyone.